Harry's Wife, Part 101.3. Prince of Wales versus Harry's Wife. Yes, as Prince William becomes the Prince of Wales and takes a step closer, eventually to becoming king following the death of his grandmother, it's time for Big Willie to start putting a bit of stick about. And we've already seen that this has been happening. Listen in. You're all, of course, aware of what's been dubbed the Windsor Walkabout, where the Prince and Princess of Wales met members of the public, as did Harry and Harry's wife. Of course, there is video footage of this with much to enjoy in terms of seeing the way that Harry's wife was behaving. Plenty to unpick, and I will be analysing that video in detail in due course. So you can look forward to that and everything that's associated with it. But before we get to that, it's important to touch upon the issue of the Prince of Wales versus Harry's wife. The appearance of the four of them together was the first time that they had been seen in such a role since around about early 2020, so 2 years ago. Aspects of the press went into overdrive, using terms such as conciliatory, olive branch, heal the rift, reunite, and show of unity. Of course, there are many people watching and reading who would love nothing more than the four of them to be on good terms, that the rift that has arisen between Princes Harry and William be healed, be put to one side, and them all to have that happy ever after. Of course, with regard to that, members of the public exhibiting their own emotional empathy and the desire for a magical ending are failing to understand what's really going on. And of course, the press playing its usual game, talking about the fact that it was an olive branch, a phrase if I hear one more time, will no doubt result in the rather severe torturing of a minion that is sat to my right-hand side. Well, it results in people not understanding what's truly going on. There's no reconciliation here. It was not an olive branch. There's no healing of the rift. Prince William is no fool. He's not all of a sudden going to say, "Do you know what, Harry? You've behaved like a complete ginger turd these last few years, but do you know what? Notwithstanding the fact that I think that you've sent Granny off to an early grave, and your behaviour with regard to grandfather was completely crap, I'm going to welcome you back into the fold and say nothing of it." No. Prince William understands the notion of duty, and of course as a normal is not affected by emotional thinking. He has emotional empathy for his brother, he has it by the spade loads, but that has been reduced as a consequence of the conduct of Harry and Harry's wife, and Prince William is able to put the throne of the United Kingdom above and beyond his relationship with his brother. He knows tough decisions have to be made. Furthermore, he has little time for the spider. He saw her for what she is, not necessarily as a narcissist, but as a troublemaker, not only in the way that she behaved towards his wife, but also the way that she has behaved towards the family and the institution. Prince William is not going to forget that. And indeed, suitably advised, Prince William is going to engage upon a course of conduct whereby he ensures that the institution is protected and that Harry's wife is dealt with. So this was not a matter of reconciliation, nor the olive branch. Let's snap that fucker in two and burn it, then burn the ashes. What happened with regard to the Windsor Walkabout was the simple fact that Harry's wife, demonstrating her rampant sense of entitlement, absence of emotional empathy, absence of accountability for her behaviour, the need to manage the facade, the need to draw fuel, and of course assert control over the royal family and the members of the public, alongside the residual benefit of that pressing need to get tasty footage for Netflix, was just going to turn up and wander about Windsor as if she owned the place. Yes. As a private citizen, that had stepped down from royal duties, she still believed that she was entitled to turn up in Windsor, wander around, meet the public, accept their condolences, and have it all filmed. Therefore, she once again demonstrated her narcissism at full tilt, showing no emotional empathy for the crowds that were there because it was all about her needs. She's not interested in what they have to say. She thinks she is, because her narcissism compels her to believe that. But believe me, knowing narcissism as I do and narcissism inside out, she genuinely doesn't give a fig about what they think. All she wants is to ensure that they're under control, that they see her in a good light, that she's seen to apparently be compassionate and caring, although, as we all know, her behaviour and conduct hitherto demonstrate she's far from that. Were she a more evolved narcissist, she probably would have stayed out of the way. However, she's not. And through her compartmentalisation, she turns up, not only with what many people would deem to be a brass neck in terms of turning up and shaking the hands and accepting the flowers and accepting people's condolences in relation to a woman that she did very little in terms of supporting. But of course, she's there to ensure she asserts control, draw fuel from all those tertiary sources, to gain character traits, and of course that residual benefit. A double whammy of managing the facade. Look, I care, I'm doing the right thing, even though this family have been awful to me. This colonial racist family who drove me to the brink of suicide, that questioned the colour of my son, that forced me to flee across the sea, notwithstanding all of those horrible things that they've done to me. Look at how wonderful I am. I'm turning up here, walking around in heels, no doubt my bunioned, cloven hooves aching like buggery, but I'm still here doing all of this because I care, because I'm a kind and empathic person. That is what her narcissism will be telling her. You are wonderful, Harry's wife, it will be saying. This family have treated you like something on the bottom of her shoe. They've shat on you from a great height, yet you still show the dignity, poise and grace to turn up and pay tribute to Her Majesty the Queen and get out there and meet the people. You truly are the Duchess of demonstrable empathy. That is the delusion that her narcissism creates. It has to, in order to propel her to get out there and get to the primer aims. It has to get her beyond the fact that people are looking and saying, who the fuck do you think you are turning up here after the way that you've behaved? Of course, many members of the British public would just exhibit politeness and shake the hand and nod and speak politely to her, although more about that in the video analysis in due course. Because she showed this rampant sense of entitlement and other narcissistic indicators demonstrative of her narcissism, she was just going to breeze in there and act like she owned the place and that she was entitled to do this walkabout, when actually she was not. This posed a difficulty. Prince William could have said, Harry, fucking not a chance. Come over here and I'm going to pull you by the ginger hair and deliver a few punches to your lower jaw until you're in submission. You and your wife are going nowhere near Windsor. But if he had issued a diktat along those lines, we all know what would have happened. Rather than exhibit discretion by saying, yes, I understand that, we're not working royals, and also our behaviour hasn't been very good, has it, towards the Queen as of late, so we'll just stay quietly out of the way and pay our respects in a different way. No, what they would have done is the PR machine would have cranked up, doling out those pity plays. Prince William, big baldy bastard, said I couldn't meet the people, announces Harry's wife. Harry, my brother's a twat. He stopped me from receiving condolences on the death of my grandmother. Harry's wife, Kate made me cry by telling me I wasn't allowed to do Windsor Walkabout while she became Princess of Wales and laughed at me. It wouldn't have been as blatant as that, but what would have happened is that if the Prince of Wales had said to Harry's wife, and Harry, you're not doing this, I forbid it, they would probably have complied, but then they would have cried through the PR and made it all about them and made it look like Prince William was being an utter twunt in terms of preventing them. And of course, it would have played fairly badly, because whilst there'd be a section of the public who would say, good, they shouldn't be there, there'd also be a section who'd say, well, they should be allowed to, and they're just being nice, and then others would think that would be a lovely gesture to allow them to do it. Come on, come together and reconcile, not realising, of course, what he's truly dealing with. Therefore, appropriately advised to how to handle this particular narcissist, and of course the way that she would respond to this threat to control by being told, no Windsor Walkabout for you, the Prince of Wales adeptly decided, okay, I'm not going to forbid them. That will backfire and blow up on our faces. What we will do is we will allow them to do it, and we'll create the appearance of it being some form of olive branch. Thus, we look good. They get what they need out of it, but be under no illusion. All that I'm doing is setting out a bear trap for her, because she believes that she's being welcomed back. She believes that there is some form of reconciliation. She believes once again that she's got her way. And she is going to end up finding out that it's not anywhere near what she thinks it's going to be. Of course, in such circumstances, what will happen is that Harry's wife is being given a little bit of honey to draw her in, because now the Prince of Wales is getting savvy about what he's dealing with and is receiving the appropriate instructions and guidance as to how to deal with her. He played a blinder. It made the public think, that's good. It didn't blow up in his face as it could have been, but also, because Harry's wife is focused on the now, her narcissism does not think ahead, and that she doesn't have the cognitive function either, she's fallen prey to this strategic move on the part of Prince William. The Prince of Wales has ensured that he looks good, his wife looks good. You'll notice, of course, in the video that if you had put it in two separate frames, you'd have thought it would be two separate events. The Wales is on one side and Harry's wife on the other. And they only really were together when they left the vehicle and came back together at the end. And William had very little to do with either of them, maintaining that appropriate distance. Accordingly, the Prince of Wales is getting the measure of Harry's wife, and he acted appropriately to deal with this rampant sense of entitlement exhibited by her in relation to the Windsor Walkabout. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.